Good morning. How are you? It's lovely to have people already waiting for me. I'm so sorry I'm a minute or two late.
Amateur.
My husband is shouting amateur at me. However, I was actually just literally online with him in his previous show. And, he was a bit tardy about coming off air. I think he just likes it too much. Anyway, on today's show, I'm joined by Owen Lloyd Martin, who is going to be helping me talk today about the big transformational question of, are we going to be here in 1,000 years? And I think it's going to be like one of these really weird questions that brings up a whole heap of other questions, a whole bunch, and I'm really keen to find out what yours are. But before we get going, I really just want to have a kind of daily moment where we can just really check in and find out how we are right at the start of the show, and then what has occurred during the show, and we do another sort of temperature check at the end. So what I'd like to know is, how are you today? How are you feeling in yourself? What thoughts did you have when you got up this morning? And what's on your mind right now? So if you were to rate your feeling of joy or peace or excitement right now, or your emotion, and if you were to rate the intensity of that feeling out of 10, where would you be?
8.
Carl saying 8. Why is that? Why are you an 8?
Because I'm allowing. Well, I think that's a pretty good score. And
Uh-huh.
I'm aware in this last little while, I've been busy with this engaging myself in a fitness program to lose a bit of weight and get a bit more lean and toned up.
Yep.
And it's brought new stresses that I'm enjoying. It's good stress. Is that called eustress? EU stress?
I have no idea.
And there's distress and eustress, I think, and it's positive stress.
Yep.
But it's a bit consuming as well. And I think, I've got a busy day today. I need to take the car into the.
That doesn't sound like an 8 to me. That sounds more like a 6.
What? You asked me.
Yeah. Okay.
I have it as an 8.
Okay.
For reasons which I will share with you now.
Ooh.
I don't mind having a 10 every day. Like a lot of people say, oh, life would be boring if you were happy all the time. I'm saying, should we try it?
Yeah.
Should we give it a go?
Yep.
And I don't mind declaring a 10. Top of the morning, 10 out of 10. But what I'm aware of is that I do have some preoccupation about getting the car in today and cycling back, and having some other bikes delivered today, and doing my Portugal club tonight. It feels like a busy day.
It does.
And I've got this background of I'm learning about hunger. Because before, like 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, if I was hungry, I'd just eat something.
Yeah.
But now I'm mindful about it.
Yeah.
And I'm gratefully mindful about it, because it is teaching me a hunger-based mindfulness practice. But it's also quite stressful. My body is shouting at me. And so, that is slightly drawing me away from my Buddha-like state. And I'm being drawn away from my Buddha-like state in so many ways.
Yeah.
The fat belly's going. And these things come up, and there's lots to do.
Yeah, well, it's very strange to just have your voice in my ear that everyone can hear. And
I like it.
Yeah, it's cool. I do like it when you're live on air with me. And I know you're finding some transformational news, because we have also got on today's show, we've got transformational news from Carl at past, and also most likely a moment to reflect on from Sarah Taylor. Now, yesterday she came up with some fantastic questions, and I'm going to be posing them at some point during the show. And I think there is a power in a question. There is power in asking us these things from a new perspective. So I just want to see how they create a shift as well. Anyway, I've got some comments. I think I should probably say how I'm feeling as well. I would say I'm around about a 7. I feel like I'm just catching up a little bit. There's a bit of a new routine in the Munson household, but I'm feeling very sort of excited by the possibility, but also a little bit freaked out that things might be slightly out of my control, but it's all good. Now, Owen is asking me if he's in the green room right now, and he's not, which is a bit worrying because he's my main guest. Owen, have you clicked on the link that I sent you in Facebook? Have you clicked on it? Because it should take you to our green room. So let us know. Anyway, in the meantime, we've got some comments from T-Duck. He's saying, when life gets you down, remember, we're all just a bunch of talking monkeys flying through the universe on an organic spaceship called Earth. That's That is really cool, actually. And that raises a whole heap of other questions, T-Duck, because, is Earth actually an organic spaceship? What is the universe? Does that exist? There's a whole bunch of stuff. So I like that. Dougie's saying, has Carl ever been inclined to come on air? Well, every single time there is the opportunity for him to do that, he does. So it looks like I've got Owen. So that's a thumbs up to you, Owen. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll bring you on in just a sec. T-Duck is saying you need to travel the valleys to truly appreciate the mountaintops. I would agree with that. I love that. I love that sentiment. And, it ties in with our conversation just from yesterday, where I was talking to Benjamin Stubbs, top coach and author, and also my devoted husband, who's just sat to the side of me at the moment. We were talking really about the nature of duality and the ups and downs that we go through and how they're actually kind of serving us. So anyway, let's bring Owen on now. Please do let us know, how are you feeling, T-Duck? How are you feeling, Dougie, and everyone else? Let us know in the chat room who's here and where you're listening in from. That'd be really wonderful. Just before I bring Owen on, we've got a comment from Pete. Homo sapiens have lasted 300,000 years and modern humans 160,000. But when we were looking at the 4,500-year-old tombs in Egypt this summer, they managed immortality to the extent that they are displayed. So I wonder what you're thinking about the title then, Pete. Will humans last another 1,000 years? I really like the way you said modern humans have been around for 160,000 years. One of the questions that's coming up for me is, what is the nature of being a modern human, and will humans stay the same if we're going to last 1,000 years? Anyway, let's bring on our lovely friend Owen Lloyd Martin right now. Is the applause button the yellow one? Sometimes that's helpful, Mr. M. Let's bring him on now and see if I can bring on some applause at the same time.
I expected the wah wah wah.
Hang on, I've got the wah 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 one.
There you go. Good morning, Louisa. Good morning, Cal. Can I just say though, I'm having very bit difficulty hearing, so I don't know whether there's an echo with you talking that's coming through my laptop. That's the only way that I can hear you.
No, not yet. And we'll just put up with it, because the most important thing is that we get to have this conversation. I think it's all about the conversation. Good. And you're looking great. It's looking like it's a beautiful.
Thank you very much. It's all this sun and the Factor 5 sun cream.
So we've got Gillian joining us as well from Scotland. Morning, Gillian. Thanks for joining us. So Owen, before we get into the big question, how are you feeling today? Out of 10.
I'm an 8 this morning.
Are you?
I'm definitely an 8.
And why is that? Like, what kind of feeling have you got?
Absolutely. Well, it's do you know what? I'm having a sense of anticipation that something good is just around the corner for me.
Yeah.
Something I've been waiting for a long, long while, actually, and I just have this sneaky feeling that it's going to happen very, very soon. So
beautiful.
And plus the fact the weather's kind of mellowing itself out. We're the day before our Ferish Novus, the big fair up here that starts for 4 or 5 days. So things are buzzing in the area as well. So things are looking good.
See, what I'm getting from you there is that sense of intuition, that sense of connection, that sense that there is a hive of activity coming. It's that sense of precognition. And I think I think people are very happy when we can sense like that. We a bit like animals do. They know what's coming. Anyway, so the big question then: where will humans last another 1,000 years? What's that raised in you? That question, what's come up?
Well, it's funny because when you was telling me about the subject itself, I was trying to think, well, what am I going to come up with off the top of my head? So what I actually did, I had a scour through the old Tinterweb and had a look at 1 or 2 articles that was there. So I'm looking at things from all sides, from CNN to ScienceAlert.com, Business Insider, and Marker.com, and they're all giving their own different opinions, and it actually ranges from 2015, 2016 up to 2022. So there's different ideas of where they, let's call them the mainstream media, see us in 1,000 years' time.
Yeah, I would imagine that those articles somehow were able to capture some of the big talking points that they seem to be wanting to impress upon us, like weather, population figures, food safety, health, and health drives. What did you notice from those articles? What really came out?
One word: transhumanism.
Yes.
Which is a bone of contention to a lot of people, but
Yeah.
excuse me, you have a lot of people that are mocking this,
Yeah.
the conspiracy theorists and everything else. But as I say, some of these articles are from 2015, which
Yeah.
we rewind back to 2015. Transhumanism, that term wasn't really on the radar at that particular moment in time. And I find it fascinating, in particular, when I was researching this, is to find that at least 3 of the articles that I read yesterday mentioned transhumanism as if it was a new thing, and it's just now, over the last 2 years, being more and more relevant, or the term being more widely used, I would say, in the mainstream.
That's fascinating, because also at the same time there's been very much a transgender, like the word trans, like the idea that we could be transforming, transiting ourselves, like the word trans is used a lot, so much so that it just seems to be part of everyday life, so you don't really question it anymore.
Well, yeah, is it the fact that it's just appeared everywhere, or is it the fact that it's being highlighted more?
Yeah.
If I can use that word conservatively.
Yeah. Yes,
It's kind of
you
being
can use
pushed
that word
upon.
any way you like.
Some people would say it's being pushed upon. Other people would say, just little droplets here, there, and everywhere. But only time will tell, Louisa. Only time will tell.
Yes. So, with the whole idea of transhumanism, then, what things were brought up in these conversations?
Well, there was. It's quite funny because it opens up a whole can of worms when you go into this subject. As talking about nanoparticles and things being injected into the human body to help this process speed up. So it's quite worrying to hear for some. And then as we know, I think we've seen this being reported over at least the last 5 years of the chip that you have placed in your hand that you can enter doors, pay for everything. That's been highlighted, I would definitely say, over the last 2 to 3 years, of having this chip put in your hand where your money's on there, all your details are on there and everything else. And for me, just looking at the whole transhumanism thing that is a starting point, because not to veer off subject, because once you consent to having a chip in your hand, what would that lead to? And that's just something that I've just gathered once again, just from reading some of these reports that we have here.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, this is one of the things, I wrote a little list. I didn't do any research because I just thought, I wonder what might come up today. And I was literally like flying by the seat of my pants like usual. So a couple of questions came up for me. We've got quite a few comments coming in, so I'll read those out in a sec. Thanks, guys. Does it really matter if we're not here? Is one of the thoughts I had. And then if it does matter if we're here or not, then why does it matter if we're here in 1,000 years? So there are also things that I'd like to maybe throw in. But like, how do we survive? And what is stopping us from thriving? So I know there's a lot of different things being levied at us in terms of weather, health, food, population figures, which, I don't even necessarily believe that when we're told there's 8 billion or 7 billion or 9 billion people. I'm thinking, well, how do we actually have an accurate number on that? I just, I don't necessarily buy it. But anyway, aside from that, the whole idea of transhumanism, when I was 25, so like 20 plus years ago, I had a boyfriend who went to a lot of networking dues. And he came home one day and he had this really fantastical story. And I just said, bull, that's not going to happen. But anyway, he said, I was at this networking do today and I was chatting to this guy about technology. And he said that we were going to have these things called smartphones. And of course, back then we all had like these massive bricks that were like really like huge. They said, we're going to have these smartphones and we're going to be able to do everything from our phone. We're going to be watching TV, watching music. We're going to be responding to people in comments. We'll be able to swap photos. But the biggest thing will be, we'll be able to pay for things. We'll be able to hold our phone up to a vending machine and use it as a credit card. It's, you know, our phones are going to become everything. And I, at the time, was thinking, it's interesting. I can't see that happening. And then he added, when I asked the person telling me about this and why this might be happening, he said, the phones are just here to facilitate the change from having things in our hand that we're used to doing things on our hand, for us having the technology in our hand, so that we'll get so used and conditioned to holding our phone up to something that it will just be a really easy step to just hold our hand up to a vending machine, hold our hand up to a door. And at that time I was working for JP Morgan Chase out of Bournemouth and London. And so I was well aware of, you know, what it was like to have to put a pass up to get into different rooms. You know, there were access denied areas and stuff like that. So yeah, over 25 years ago, I was hearing that this kind of thing that we're seeing now was coming in from a complete stranger, that like some mystical person who obviously had some kind of knowledge or something. And he was just, I don't know why he told my boyfriend at the time, why he thought that was relevant or why he was revealing plans. But the funny thing is, I'd really forgotten about that question. But at the start of the pandemic, I remembered it and I checked it, verified it with my ex, and obviously he's an ex now. And yeah, we were kind of musing over why that seemed more important. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Before I find out, you know, like share a bit more between us, let's just hear some of the thoughts that are coming in. So Pete is saying, what was really interesting was the way that later empires like the Romans, Greeks and French destroyed evidence of how advanced they are, just as the Egyptians did with the Etruscans. Why would people destroy their knowledge, I wonder?
Well, if you think about if it's the people, you know, the people that invented or introduced it to the people, and they maybe at the time maybe thought it was a good idea, and the people said, well, no, surely you could use it this way, which was more beneficial to us rather than you. Maybe just as, you know, just as a little curveball being thrown in there, but you know, it could be a situation like that. You know, just going back on your point there, you know, the story that you told, we could look at the changes now, and I think they are all interconnected. If we look at the states of the supermarkets now, where there are more self-service checkouts than there are manned checkouts, so we're losing that communication between each other, and we're relying on the machine. And it's just one thing that I've always questioned about this whole, you know, about the whole transhumanism, the old technology thing, is that if we all move to technology and, you know, we're running by the power of electricity, is that what happens when we have a power failure? There's no backup. If we look at the cashless society that people are talking about, you know, once again, if it's all going to be no cash in hand and it's all done digitally, what are the provisions that have been put in place for us to cope if there is a power failure? So I think these are the questions that need to be addressed in this whole situation, is that what's the backup plan? You can't introduce something and say it's a good idea without there being a fail safe there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also not just like what happens if the like the energy source, I mean, I think there are probably smarter energy sources out there than the ones that are being presented to us, you know, that I've heard of and looked a little bit in, but don't have any direct experience of, but quite excited by those. But also, like, if everything is online, if we're not taking ownership for things that are in our, I guess, our remit, you know, within our little boundary, within our little known experience, then how do we know that that information couldn't get hacked, siphoned in like nanoseconds? We just don't know. Let's see what Gary's got to share. So he's saying the Earth is always busy conducting experiments throughout time. We've been at the top of the apex for a while, but maybe the Earth is beginning to change the management like it did with the dinosaurs. Interesting thought.
I like that.
Point of view. Yeah. Squire of the Shires. It's not about transgender. It's about transaugmentation. That's a good word. And merging of technology with the body. if they can blur what a human has identified. Yeah, so like I think the human identity is totally shifting at the moment, and there's a real narrative for it. I've also noticed there's like films kind of, I always think watch in the films for maybe a theme of what might be about to come up. But there was that film. Did you see She? Is it called She? The one with Scarlett Johansson?
Yes.
It's not Lucy.
Oh, Lucy, that's it. Yeah,
I just thought that just the other day, actually. Yeah, very good film. I watched it again.
It's interesting because there's lots of images of black goo and like how she gets just taken over by this black goo that is kind of spreading all over her. But she becomes one with the technology, or she becomes it. She is.
Yeah.
And then there's the film She, and is that also Scarlett Johansson? Is it, or I can't remember. Oh, sorry.
Maybe not that loud.
Sorry. Carl wants to
Isn't
answer.
it a nightmare running a show with a fellow broadcaster and presenter? I thought you were referring to the thing I saw, a German film, where a woman very reluctantly takes part in an experiment with a robot boyfriend.
Oh.
All in the same sort of genre.
Yeah, yeah.
And are thoroughly fascinating and a really good reason not to do it.
Let's see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are ideas of, I've seen stories of fake wombs, like creating babies without the need for I think, how am I referred to now as a birthing person? There's a lot of different ideas on what it is to be a human now. So I really like what Square of the Shies is saying. What have you got anything to add to that, Owen?
Well, I was just looking through one of the articles we've got here, and this is from sciencealert.com. And as I said, the version of this article was first published in October 2015. And the most highlighted part that stood out to me, it says, in the next 1,000 years, the amount of languages spoken on the planet are set to seriously diminish, and that extra heat and UV radiation could see darker skin become an evolutionary advantage.
Ooh. Okay.
How's that?
Yeah.
Looking good for people with my skin colour, I'm afraid.
I have no problem with that. What's that?
What about us gammons? What are we going to do, Owen?
So that's interesting. What was the first part? Oh, the language.
So it says here, so the amount of languages spoken on the planet are set to seriously diminish.
Yeah.
So I think that goes down to I think you could attach that to the business world, couldn't you, really? Yeah. Because if we look at the business world and how transactions are dealt, it's mainly done in the English language, I would say. If you look at the percentages of that, it's done in the English language. So maybe the English language will still be around in 1,000 years. And you never know, there could be changes. There could be amalgamation, maybe with there being a European state of America, let's just say, there may be one language throughout the whole of Europe. Yeah.
Which I'm sure for, some people sounds like an idyllic dream. I like the skeptic in me thinks, so we're going to have one world language, or like a reduced amount of languages. Who's going to be administrating that? That makes it much easier to facilitate like a big government or a big health body or something like that.
I would hope it doesn't go that way, because if we are going to revert to, let's say, a single language, is that an individual country will then lose its identity, in my eyes, because you're not using the native tongue of that particular country. So for me, I would not like to see languages diminished, because that identifies us as who we are. The individual language, the different accents and everything else. And I think if we are, as the article says, if we are going to lose, a certain amount of languages, I think now is the time that we should be preserving them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And what Squire's saying about how humans are identified as, that also goes with nationalities, doesn't it? And
exactly that. There's going to be no identity, and I think we're going to fall into the trap. And it was mentioned yesterday, I think you talked with Ben about the pigeonholes, about people being allocated certain, because of who they are. You are Owen, you are a black person, you have dreadlocks on you, therefore you are in this section. I think that will become all the more, because if we are going to change, or, as the article says, if we are going to change, there's going to be a lot less languages. you have a smaller group of people which you can then say, right, you are from here originally, but now you are here. So I don't know. It's quite a scary concept, really, that we're going to lose our languages and because we are essentially going to lose our identity if that does happen. If we forget our language and try and learn a new one or integrate into a new language, I think that's where the difficulties will start to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And something that occurs to me is the moment we lose our identity, we lose our language, we lose our concept of belonging. Like, who do we belong to? Where do we belong?
Exactly that.
We become orphans in some respect. And of course, I think this is what happens when people get gaslit, like people that get into bad relationships where they're being manipulated and put down and this, that, and the other. You start disidentifying with the behaviors that, like somebody who's aggressive or judgmental, that they're putting on you. And so you start to lose the thing that makes you you. And then once you start losing who you are, it becomes much harder to get out of that situation. So it makes me realize that or consider that maybe, we're heading down a one-way street, and at what point do we turn back? At what
That's it. That's it. I mean, there's a point there that Gillian made. Our communication is most rich in our mother tongue, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. But to lose that's a bit scary. To think that a language would be phased out. But even going back to the comment that Garbo made earlier on about they've been experimenting on this for years, so they've been looking to change things for years. And I think it's up to us as individuals and human beings to say, to have that option to say, no, we don't want this.
Yeah.
We'd rather stay as we are. I mean, if we take it from another point of view, is that if we look at the problems over the years that Maoris, that the Aboriginals have had, some of the lesser known tribes in South America, undiscovered tribes, is that the more the Western world has encroached into these places, that the less and less, their identity has been eroded away. The more times we visit, the more times we visit these places.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that we are losing indigenous tribes from all over the planet because of the integration. I'm not saying that we shouldn't integrate. Integration is great.
Yeah.
But there should always be a limitation on that. Where to the point that a group, a tribe isn't losing their identity, because we are all individuals, and we all want to live our life in the best way possible. But to have that taken away from you will certainly shake up the planet in a big way. And I don't think it's something that people will take very easily as well.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Right. Carl, are you ready to do your positive news? We'll just take a break. And then after Carl's little news update, I want to have a look at some of these comments, because your street's ahead of me, Owen. But I can see we've got loads of comments coming in. So I really want to, honor those. Right, Carl, take it away.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at,
us?
well, the brief is to find it was originally to find positive news, wasn't it?
And or transformational news.
Yeah, and that's, I think, after a conversation about it, and about which I will give you some background on why I'm struggling a bit with this. And we came up with the idea of transformational news. Now, I'm looking at positive news, positive.news, the paper magazine that I used to work for as assistant editor. And they have a lovely feature called What Went Right This Week, the good news you should know about. Tech giant U-turned on right to repair, watershed, a moment for consumer rights and a win for the planet. Electronics giant Apple has backed plans for a right to repair law in the US after years spent doggedly lobbying against it. I won't go into all of these in detail, but just to give you a flavor of what they see as being positive news and the good things that happened in the world this week. Fossil fuel burning collapsed in the EU. Speaking of emissions, another story about climate. And it's certainly from a particular agenda, isn't it? A once extinct bird strode back into the wild. I mean, he might be an arsehole and we don't want him back. And it might be nations joined forces to battle biodiversity loss. Small greening projects have a big impact, a study found. Now, I'm doing my own little bit of kinesiology and intuition on these stories. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, that doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel like
No.
I'm being manipulated, that one.
Actually,
And
I
being
thought that as
told
well.
to think a certain way.
Yeah.
When I read
Mhm.
small greening projects have a big impact, a study found, I'm thinking, oh, that's nice. That one I can go with. England got a new cancer jab to slash treatment times. Like, what? I'm not sure.
Is that a good news story?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a positive news story. US billboards called out big oil, so a big oil bashing. Namibia offered a solution to water shortages. Okay, human beings being able to have water. That sounds good, doesn't it? And my old mate Rob Hopkins is featured. Positive news came back from the future. And Rob does this thing where he imagines what's going on in 2030 and comes back to give us a message of hope. And I really, I found Rob Hopkins of the transition movement really inspiring and helpful. And he said something to me years ago about, we have these twin drivers of climate change and peak oil. And not only, does it behove us and we must do something about this, but it will be the making of us. And I think the bit I found most inspiring was about how, as human beings, we get involved in something that is the making of us. And whilst my views about climate change and peak oil have changed since he said that to me in 2008, I think it was, the idea that we work together on a joint endeavor that will be the making of us still makes me feel very like I want to hug the big fella, Rob Hopkins. Now, coming back to this idea of transformational news and starting from this point of view this morning, that it's like, there's a little bit of manipulation about what is a good and a bad story. What I will continue to look for, Mrs. M, are these articles that are giving us the collective opportunity to grow together, to be together, to unfold individually and personally. That's, to me, is transformational news.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily good news because it ticks the box of a particular agenda. I think we need to get away from that. I think that sort of news is becoming actually harmful rather than helpful. This is how you should think, and here's a good news story about it. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to be looking for stories that are, and I hesitate to call them stories. They're all stories. Everything's a story, isn't it? Or they are a proper article, and they have, for me, a proper article, and I'll qualify that subjectively. A proper article, a good story, would be one that has a feeling like you're trying to do with this show generally, to lift people's spirits and give them a point of engagement and inspiration. So that's where I'll be going. That's my setup for the time being.
I think a story about a lucky dog escape or something would also work.
Well, that's right. That's right.
That's the thing that really gets the heart going.
Yeah.
You're right.
And that's why the news used to end with those things.
Yes,
A cat got rescued from a tree this afternoon. Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah, and everyone's happy.
It's a story about which most people can feel good about. That's a part of it. But I think also there's the one that stuck out for me most.
Do you know what? You should come on screen if you're gonna keep talking.
No, I'll go now.
No, I didn't mean to get you off, but it's kind of weird for me and Owen actually. Is it a bit weird for you sat there? Yeah, it's a bit odd for us.
I'm just.
Where are you?
I've been put in the corner of the room, Owen.
He's put himself in the room.
Yeah.
You've been put in time out, Cal.
Naughty step.
Yeah, I'm going to turn him down now. I'm going to turn him off. Bye. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for doing some.
Thank you, Cal.
For some research. Now let's have a look at some of these comments. Which ones caught your eye? Some of Gillian's.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring Gillian on. So she's saying, loving this already. Thank you so much, Gillian. I remember more than 20 years ago, a friend telling me that this wasn't real, that it was a construct. She was considered to be medically mad at the time. And even though I sensed truth, I knew it wasn't time to be real with what was being said. She's also saying, we've been taught into believing that humans are pathetic and weak. They aren't. Gosh, this is deep for this time of the morning. It's one of those questions that really does take you down into a different kind of thinking state almost. Our communication is most rich in the mother tongue. I would agree with that. And she's also saying, and breakdown of the family, the community, the culture, all trauma created. Yes, loss of who am I? Oh, we've got a comment coming in from Sarah, so I'll go to there in a minute. Just a couple more from Gillian. In Britain, our culture and foundation were disrupted, destroyed way back. Who were our indigenous peoples? That's a good question. I have no idea, actually. I've traveled lots, and there's a big difference when still indigenous peoples, even in places like Cuba, where the indigenous populations were apparently slaughtered completely. They weren't, and still hold some sort of connection. And she's also saying, I love it, Carl. I'm sure Carl always does what you tell him, Louisa. Ha ha. He's giving you the thumbs up to that, Gillian. That's lovely. Who should we go to next? What's caught your eye, Owen?
I'm liking some of the comments. Garbo always puts in some really good comments.
Okay, let's go to
things for people to think about.
Yeah.
If I go back to,
do you want to? Can you click on them and
let's have a look? See if I can do that from here. Okay. So what was this one here? I can't. I don't think if I click on it, no. But going at the one at 10:21 a.m.
Yep.
The uneducated and ignorant are much easier to control. I quite like how I think going back there, I'm trying to find the previous comment before. Unfortunately, I can't click on it. So it's going back to the Earth has always been conducting experiments throughout time. We have been at the top of the apex for a while, but maybe the Earth is beginning to change the management like it did with the dinosaurs.
Yeah. And then
now,
we've done
is that man-made? Is that man-made? This change in management, or is this something that the people are going to implement? That's what I'd like to ask Garbo with that one there, because
that's a good question.
If the Earth is surely, for me, just an opinion, is surely if the Earth is beginning to change, who's in control of that change? Is it the few, or is it the many? That's a question I'd like to put forward there with that comment there. And if I go down to where's it gone? Identity, difference, and belief seem to be under threat of standardization to Garbo. If we use the same narrow gene pool time and time again, it will cause problems. Then why should identity be different? I'm just trying to embellish on that. I'm just trying to get my head around that. It's quite a confusing one, that if we're talking about identity, because as we know, in particular, because I follow a lot of the American press, is that identity is the big thing at the moment. If we're talking not just about trans, if we're talking, let's go to the education in schools. I mean, I know it's happening in the UK, Wales, Scotland.
Yeah, it's just, I've had a grandmother from Scotland that I work with, reported to me one day that her granddaughter, who was 8, had come back from school and had been taught about touching herself to feel good.
See, and this is the thing about it, is that there are good points and bad points to everything.
Yes, yeah.
But there has to be a limitation. There has to be a level of consent. And when I say consent, if we're talking about the example that you're giving there, Louisa, if we're talking about the educations in schools of our children, yes, we put our children into schools to be educated, but there has to be limitations on what they are taught. For me, the best education, this is no disrespect to any sort of teachers or former teacher, anything else, but the best education came from within the home. In my eyes, a lot more people are homeschooling now because of the way that school boards or because school governing bodies are putting these things into the educational curriculum. And this is without any sort of consultation with the parents. And for me, that's the worrying thing about it, because a child could have a fantastic family upbringing where they are taught morals, values, etc. And then only for them to go to a school that hasn't informed the parents that are teaching the children something completely opposite. So when we're looking at identity, going back to the whole identity thing as well, we know that there are some schools, especially in the US. I have quite a few friends in the US that I've spoken to about this, that they're concerned about their children, about their grandchildren, even as young as 5 being taught about sex. Is this the future that we really want for our children?
Well, it's a good question, because I mean, and I really like how balanced you are on it. Saying that there is a positive and negative to everything.
Absolutely,
and it can be totally spun either way. I mean, at some level, I think it can be helpful for children to learn about procreation and things like that. But when it comes to them teaching teenagers about how to have safe anal sex or something like that, then I don't think that's something for school. It's something they could get from TikTok or YouTube or asking.
That's it. I mean,
why is that going on in schools in different places? You know?
I don't want to get all conspiratorial, but I'm just going to say there's an agenda there. Yes. There has to be an agenda. I can't tell you what that exact agenda is because there are so many things that are being forced upon us these days. Is that you can't really work out. And I spent before moving to Portugal, I spent a lot of years, whether you call it an activist, whether you call it a campaigner, and things like that. And I've seen a lot of things happen over the years, but in particular when the pandemic started, and at first, you know, I was placing all these things online, you know, about this story and that, and then obviously you're getting the people turning around and calling others conspiracy theorists. And when I was a part or a part of the truth movement, I believed everything that was told to me. Yeah. But then to find out that personally, within, you know, somebody that I knew within the truth movement hurt me in a really, really bad way. That is where I decided then is to step away from the truth movement and look at both sides of the story and make my mind up without publishing my thoughts on it, because I'm not, and I heard you sort of speak about this yesterday. I'm in the same boat myself, is that I won't enter into this conversation about left, right, trans, whatever. I won't do that now because you can only be heard so many times. Yeah. And for me, I want my life to go forward. And if I was to continue on that role that I was being in, I'm never going to progress as a person, as an individual. So I need to do things for myself that's going to enrich my life. And that's not detracting away from what I actually believe what's going on in the world. I just think you can only take it to a certain point and then stop. It's not that I don't believe them anymore. It's just that I choose not to discuss them on a public forum. Yes. Completely go with that. I think Carl would like to say something.
I'd love to acknowledge you, Owen. We've seen each other growing, haven't we, in these last few years? All of us, each other, and how we're reacting to life and how we are developing as a community. And I think what you said there is such a gift to people. And and obviously as a spectator of that, it's been an amazing thing to see, and I think an incredible gift or insight to other people, that your view has changed from being sort of inside a particular paradigm, if you like, or the rabbit hole, let's call it the rabbit hole, and then coming out to higher ground, as it were, and looking at it from an entirely different view, which just sounds so wise and intelligent as an approach, because we do know what it's like, don't we, to be in the rabbit holes. And
most definitely.
As ourselves, and always easier to view when other people are doing it, isn't it? You know, we can spot it more easily than if we've disappeared down there ourselves. And it was just such, you know, if this show is about raising the atmosphere, the vibes, you did that for me right there in your telling of how you've moved your view or whatever it is you've done. It's hard to describe in a way.
Well, I think it's the I'm not going to touch upon it too much, but the personal trauma that I've had over the last 5 years has made me realize that. Is that not to dwell on things, not to hype things up, is because your own energy is being wasted.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I don't mean that in a bad way, but your energy is being wasted because there are so many things. I mean, I find that myself. Classic example with my food is that I'm going to blow my own trumpet. I make amazing food.
You do make amazing.
Getting it out to people is quite difficult.
Yeah.
You know, and I've noticed that is that the more I delve into the things that's going on in the world, is that I'm moving far away from the dream of what I really want to do, which is have people sit around a table and eat food and have a conversation, you know, be a part of a community, and love one another. Yeah. And I have to focus more on that rather than thinking that, you know, how stupid is Joe Biden or how crazy Donald Trump is, how mad Jeremy Corbyn may be compared to, I don't even know who the Tory.
Yeah, and whether Michelle Obama is actually
you can understand that I want to move away from that. I'm aware of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
100%. I have been for the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
But I've now come to the point that hang on a minute, I've focused all my time and energy on that. Where's been the time for me?
Yes.
And once again, going back to the subject of if we're going to be here in 1,000 years. Granted, I'm not going to be here in 1,000 years. I'd love to be a Peter Pan and live forever, but I have the added beauty that having longevity in genes in my family. Too. Both my grandmothers died at 114, so I'm looking at longevity in my life. So I may not be here for 1,000 years, but I'm certainly want to hit the 100 mark anyway.
Yeah. Wow. Well, mirroring what Carl was just sharing, we've also got comments from Gillian saying, loving Owen's great way. Thank you. And also from Sarah Taylor, love that, Owen. A confused and fearful mind goes in circles and not forward. And then we're just getting lots of like, this is a real love fest. It's lovely. Gillian saying, is it not mostly about where we are choosing to grow and go? What are we choosing to build and create? I mean, this is exactly what we're all doing here. This is why we're all here today, right? Coming together in connection. I just want to share a couple of other thoughts that are coming in. So Gillian was saying what's going on in schools that she's observing is horrific. I put my son into school to be with other children mainly, and because it was what we do in this, whatever we are living in, and this was 28 years ago. You know, and I'd really want to just point out that I've got nothing against teachers, by the way. I know loads of teachers who are absolutely really committed to what they do. And I know teachers that have left in recent times because they don't like the pressures that they've been put under to deliver material that they don't really deem is actually in the child's best interest as well. So
I think that's what it is as well, Louise. It's that people can quite easily, and I'm going to use a general term here, people, especially over the last few years, people can blame nurses for vaccine injuries. People can blame teachers for what they're teaching the kids. What people aren't looking at is that the people that implemented this in the first place. So it isn't the teachers or the nurses, it's the people that implemented it in the first place. They're the people that we should raise our grievances with, rather than the teachers, because at the end of the day, that is another human being doing their job. I know it's quite easy to say, yes, we're only doing our job. And, you know, people can turn and say, well, you don't have to do it. But yet these people have a life. These people have families as well. So it puts them in a situation. I think that's one of the other things I've taken out the last 3 to 4 years as well, is that you, rather than going straight to the person and blaming them for it, you have to look back. You have to look deeper into that story to find out where the original source is. It's like with all the fake news things as well. Look at both sides. You know, I think there was something that Carl had on one of the shows one and we were talking about music. And I always bring this track up, and it's going back to Howard Jones's new song. You know, and just the words of it. Don't be fooled by what you see. Don't be fooled by what you hear. You know, and challenging preconceived ideas. These are lines of his song that always stuck with me. And I think that's been kind of a guide for me throughout life, is that if you're looking at things, look at both sides of it and then make your mind up, rather than listening to one person and gaining your opinion just from that one opinion. You have to see both sides, because if you don't see both sides, you can't speak.
And then when you say like get both sides of the picture and then you make your mind up, what is that process of making your mind up? Is it in the mind? Is it in the heart? Is it in the body? Where does that
that's a difficult one to control.
Well, but I mean, where does that decision happen for you in your heart?
I think it goes back to, we were talking about instincts before and about having a gut instinct. I think sometimes when, especially if we take the last 3 years, if we hear particular stories about particular things, rather than you looking at what the press is saying or what the internet is saying, is one thing that we fail to do, is to look inside and listen to ourselves, because 9 times out of 10, you're right. Your own feeling, your gut feeling is right about what's going on. And it's a shame that we don't follow that. And I think that is maybe because of peer pressure, maybe because of what we see on TV, read online or whatever, rather than, you know, actually taking it back and listening. Exactly there. Exactly that.
I trust my inner knowing.
Trusting your inner knowing. And that's what it is. I mean, I've learned that certainly over the last 3 years is to trust myself more in what I'm thinking or what my gut feeling is. And it hasn't done me too bad thus far.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, look, you're sat in a really beautiful house there. Exactly that. I mean, you know, I'm going back to I'm
I'm in a really good situation, but I'm actually house sitting and I have been, moving from place to place over the last 3 to 4 years, maybe even longer than that, and because of my own personal situation. But I have never let that situation get the better of me, because once I do, I'm on a slippery slope down, and that's why you always see the happy smiley face. I always get on from day to day, and I wake up every morning, and I will set a few targets for the day that I want to do. And at the end of the day, when I do achieve or don't achieve them, I sit out in the nighttime sky and say and thank the universe for all that's happened and for all the interactions I've had from the day, because we're only here the one time only. So you have to make the most of what you've got each and every day.
Yeah, perfect. That's a beautiful sentiment. I'm just going to catch up on some of the other comments. I haven't got time to read them all in. They're coming in thick and fast, and it's lovely. We've got this sort of community feeling going already. Pete saying the Waziri papyrus, which was 52 foot long, has some incredible illustrations, was discovered last year, named after the Egyptian minister of antiquity.
Ooh.
So it's touching on that whole idea of history, because a few people have been commenting on that. Dougie saying most people don't look at skin color, thankfully. It's nice to be able to communicate with people no matter what their ethnicity. A core language that most people use, such as English or Spanish, is good. He's putting there as a question.
I understand that. Fully.
Definitely. Let's just see. Pete's also added in to Gary. I'm sure that's exactly the same argument that opposers of Akhenaten gave 3,000 years ago when he made the religion monotheist. So they're talking, I guess they're looking at the old patterns of, what made civilizations die out and whatnot. Obviously, I wasn't there, or I don't remember it if I was. I've lost Owen. Oh, that's a shame. So Gary's saying today's challenges will not be exactly the same as yesterday's. So we subtly adapt to meet the challenges and the joy of each day. Lot to be said for adaptation and learning about each other and the world. I love that. Squire of the Shires, I find history fascinating, what we can now learn from the ancestors. I would agree. I think that's really important. Gary's also saying we need a wide range of identity, belief, and culture to maintain a healthy society. If we don't, we stagnate and cease to learn and grow together. Let's just add.
The battery went in my camera. I do apologise.
That's okay. I just thought, he's so transcendent. He's just floated off. Pete's saying we know lots of children locally who absolutely adore their small schools and small classes here in rural Portugal, and we find young people polite, respectful, knowledgeable, and able to converse. You know what, Pete? I also reflect that, and they're really able to play as well. I think one of the things that's underpinning that is the strength of the community and the strength of the families as well as the school. And yeah, I really love that picture. I love how it is in Portugal for the kids growing up. I think that's really great. We've got Michael Brody. He's going to be one of our guests on Friday, and he's saying complain or create. Choose. And you guys have clearly chosen create. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for a fantastic creation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. That is brilliant. Well said, Michael. I agree.
It's really beautiful.
This show is the show I've been looking for certainly a long time, where people can get out and actually express their love of life.
Yeah,
and their enjoyment of life as well, and to share that. And just going back to what you were saying there about community, Louisa, is that that's the thing that was one of the things that attracted me to move to Portugal, is that sense of community. Growing up in the UK, especially in the 70s, that's where I felt really, really part of a community, especially if we go from 76, 77. Yeah. 2 great years, the long hot summer and then the Queen's Silver Jubilee. And that was all about celebration and spending time with one another, which was amazing. Yeah. But unfortunately, that seemed to me to diminish in the UK. And as the years got on, it made me just feel as though I didn't want to be there anymore. Wow. I love all my friends in the UK, but I just couldn't see myself being there for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. I know what you mean. I mean, I don't really remember 76 and 77 because I was born at the tail end of 74. But, I remember sort of my early under 7, there was more of a feeling of community and cohesion. And then do you know what? I remember at the time when my mum and dad got their first microwave, things seemed to change. Things seemed to explode exponentially, and people had big chest freezers, and so they weren't going shopping to all these different shops, and things really changed quite considerably. Time. We got a comment from Carl saying news over news. I think that's in response to Gillian saying, trusting my inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what do you know? I love that. Gary's also adding in, when we see how many people behave from the plastic in the sea to crime, cruelty, and lack of responsibility to each other and our own actions, it's easy to blame others or governments. It's our world.
It is our world. Quite right.
And I would say, Gary, how is that working out for you when, we're blaming others? It's because like Owen touched on this, because I agree with you, Gary. It does, I think most people do actually look after the world that they're living in, and they see things that are coming in from miles away, so it's like other things that aren't from your community are impacting your community without any consultation, it would seem. And one of the things that Owen was... what was it you were saying? I had the thought in my head and it's just gone. But I think you were saying something like to the effect of, even with these other things coming in, it's important to be in yourself and just see, okay, how am I in this moment? What am I doing in this world? I maybe lost the train of thought that I was going to come to.
Well, I've seen people being bogged down by the current events in the world. And I've seen people change in a matter of months. Change. I've seen people being the life and soul of the party to then being somebody that's just drained of all energy. Yeah. It's not good for your health.
No, it's not. I've seen them myself. I started to get so down in the dumps, just thinking, if we carry on this trajectory, it can only mean like our human society as we know it is dying. I've now come to realize that maybe sometimes we need these crises to realize what's valuable to us.
Exactly that. Exactly. And I think the core of that is family.
Yeah.
Family and community. Really, it really is, because that's all we ever did. If we go back to caveman times, we didn't do things as individuals there. We did things collectively because things got done, whether it be building a property, whether it be tending to the land. We did it as a community. We worked together, and then we all benefited from it all. Yeah. And I think it's that as well, that we're kind of losing that, as well. Is that I don't know. I'm a big believer in communities matter. I'm a big believer in that.
Absolutely.
Very much so. And I think that stems from being from a large family and having, a lot of people around as well. And what's the term? Safety in numbers. I think that's a good way to be. And in particular, in these times now where things are very much uncertain, if you're in a community or a group of people that can sit down and not fall out, but talk about whatever is going on in the world, that's the way we're going to resolve things.
Yes.
Even better than the politicians that we see, around the world and how they conduct business. I'm sure that, there's a place here, I went up for a lovely walk where there is a table that has 4 seats. And these 4 seats are held by, let's call them the 4 mayors of the particular area. Yeah. And they sit down and they will discuss crops, land, and sharing things between them. No money is passed hands. But once the hand was shaken across the table, the deal was done and set. And when I was taken on this walk and told about the table, I just thought, why isn't modern politics like that now? Yes. And the only way I could see it is that the corporate world has taken over and they have bought governments. And that's where we're seeing decisions being made and changed. And it's such a shame that we can't take a leaf out of Portugal's book when they had tables like this. And I believe we just didn't have one just here in the north of Portugal, but I believe there are other places in Portugal where they have this kind of, I'll call it governance. So you had 4 people of the local area sat around a table and you would exchange crops or livestock or anything like that. But once the handshake, and that's all it was There was no backhanders under the table. There was no blackmail made, but the decisions was made there and then at the table. And I think if we are going to survive another 1,000 years, is that more things like that, where no money is involved or blackmail or anything else. I think if we took a leaf out of that book, I think the world would be a lot better place in 1,000 years' time as well.
Yeah. Yes, I think you raise a very good point there. I love that idea. A couple more questions, comments, and then I just want to do a temperature check and see how everyone's feeling. So, Score of the Shies is saying recommended good reads to illuminate our minds. Astrahasis, Lament of Hermes and Ur, and the Colbrin and EDFU texts. He's also saying right on, Owen. So you've got massive thumbs up. You've had loads of kudos today, Owen. It's really fantastic. So we've got a bit of a Sarah moment coming in. So Sarah's saying, as long as we are free, we will be.
Yes.
I love that. And she's also given me a question yesterday. And what she says is, what brings us together? So if there was a thought for us to leave the show on today, it would be, what brings us together? This is what is really resonating with me. And how do we know what we know? Because I think if we can get clearer on those two things, that might actually sort of facilitate more of an opening for us,
I would say that the love of life for the first one.
Yeah. What brings us together? The love of life.
The love of life and sharing this beautiful planet that we've been given the opportunity to be on for our short time. If we're talking about 1,000 years, for the short time that we're here on this planet, you should enjoy every single moment of it. I wake up every morning and think, good, breathing, what's happening today? Bring it on. Let's see what we can do.
Yes.
It has to be like that. I've had so many ups and downs over the last few years, is that I've forgotten all that. I wake up in the morning and think, right, what's happening today? How can I challenge it? If it's a negative thing, or if it's a positive thing, how can I enhance it?
Yeah. How can it get any better than this?
Because you have to keep bouncing. You have to keep going.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I'm going to draw this to a close in a sec. Carl's saying, remember, we have a non-meta community too. So, yeah, that's a good point, a good nudge from him. If you want to carry on this conversation, if you go to school, skool.com, and type in the Barefoot Broadcast and then just join, I'll let you in. And, the conversation can carry on there. And I think it's going to be a place where, we can all congregate and share resources and whatnot. So please do join us there. How are you all feeling now? How are you feeling now? Has your score changed? Where were we? An hour ago, I said I was about 7, I think. I'm feeling more 9.5, feeling quite set up for the day. How are you feeling now? Has it changed at all?
I've gone up. I've gone up to a 10 actually, because it's I've not done a live broadcast on anything online for a long while, and I had a bit of nerves at the beginning there, but it's been great because for the first time, I'm not cooking food, but I'm here speaking from my truths and my heart.
Yes,
and it's so good because it's kind of been like a release for me as well. Because, I do have political views and I don't share them widely. In fact, when I have met people, I've been in northern Portugal a year now. When I have met people, one thing I will say to them is that if you come in to eat with me, in particular if I've cooked, there's no politics at the table, because that's when people start falling out.
Yeah, and of course,
I'm happy for people to talk about any other subject, but once it starts getting political and people, are steadfast in their political views, it's not about that for me around the dining table. It's about everybody enjoying each other's company and
enjoying the food.
And eating some good food.
Yeah, I mean, you can't enjoy food if you're struggling over your emotions, can you?
That's true. Very true.
Well, I'm glad you did challenge yourself today, and because obviously we haven't got food as a context, and I'm really glad you come to share because, everyone's appreciated you today. T-Duck is saying Owen is wise beyond his years.
Thank you, T-Duck. Come and see you soon.
Gary's saying start small and keep working it out from there. Find what causes you grief. If you can't change it, leave it and move on to what you can change. I would agree. That's really sensible, isn't it? Yesterday's done. Today and tomorrow are possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that. Gareth saying, hey Gareth, sat listening today for a change. If any place will still exist in 1,000 years, it will be Portugal long after we're gone, and the Portuguese way of life. Yeah,
absolutely. 100%.
We're both sat in Portugal and we would agree with that. Squire Shies is saying excellent exaltations and good vibrations. And Gary is saying the sun has just come out.
Same here. Same here. Well timed, Gav. It's just come out here as well. Thank you.
That is absolutely perfect. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Owen, for being a great sport and sort of like going as deep as we did. Thanks for all the questions and everything. On Thursday, we're back. We've got Jay Atkinson, who is a psychic, and she's got like this lovely grandmother energy. You've seen Jay, haven't you? On one of my shows before. She's
yes. Yeah.
And we've also got Vinny Grant, who's a hypnotherapist, coach, and real good egg. Very much about feeling good. I can't remember what we're talking about on Thursday, but it's bound to be a very heartfelt sort of affair. So please do join us there. But I just want to say thank you to everyone, Owen, Carl, everyone today. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you again on Thursday. So lots and lots of love to you all, and see you soon. Bye for now.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.